morning?
Yeah.
That's good, but that's part of what we do.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
You gotta support.
Yeah.
But you look good for someone who had not a lot of sleep.
I know. It's part of the routine. Yeah. So I'm kind of used to it.
That's good. Hey everyone, it's Alvaro. I am here with Kortez Robinson. We are at Lidios Flowers and Cafe Shop here in Roselle Park, Westfield Avenue. I was talking to the owner right before Kortez came, and they've just opened up a year, and I love the concept. I love the store. So if you want to get some coffee and flowers, you can do it all here at one time and save yourself running around and trying to look for a gift or anything like that. So make sure you come out and you support businesses, because part of the community is also extending ourselves to small mom and pop shops that are trying to get whatever brand, whatever content it is that they're doing out to the public, right? One of the things that we can all understand is that it does take a lot. It takes a community to try to get something off the ground. And now with social media, you know, you can help promote small businesses like this and try to get some kind of, just shine the light on what they're doing, because a lot of this stuff, they're doing it out of their pockets, especially the mom and pop shops, which I also love in the record stores. You know, the smaller stores, not so much the big stores, tend to have, you know, those gems that not a lot of people find because they're not really known stores. Right. But I want to thank you for coming down, and I wanted to have the opportunity to just dig a little deeper on who Kortez Robinson is, what your movement is about, and I've also been reading some of your point of views on Facebook about certain things that are going on. So let's start with just giving us a little glimpse of who you are, and tell us something that not a lot of people may know about you.
Okay, well, my name is Kortez. I work under the guise Esoteric Urbanism, and I also do Gathering of Tribes. And so I've been a DJ since the 80s, you know. Also I'm a visual artist. And
which were you first?
I would say I was an artist first. But growing up in the 80s, it was like all of the artists that I really admired didn't just do one thing. But at the same time, my father would always tell me, either be an artist or you be a DJ. Right. And so I always felt compelled to pick a lane. And I think the last couple of years, I would say I'm my happiest doing it all and more or less pushing DJ culture instead of just I'm a DJ.
Gotcha.
I'm part of a bigger thing.
What is the difference to you?
Between what?
Just being a DJ and being part of a culture.
It's a tremendous thing. I'm just realizing now that the last couple of weeks, that 40 years I've been a fan and spinning house music. And so my introduction to house music was via hip hop. And I would say more disco. So seeing it in the neighborhood, just like you could reach out and touch it, makes a difference. And I think growing up in this, I didn't realize I was part of a culture. And now I'm starting to see the bigger picture, and part of that is due to social media and just people having the accessibility to tell their stories. So everybody has a story, I'm realizing. And a lot of my rants, I call them on Facebook, is me also practicing writing and articulating my thoughts on whether it be DJ culture, social commentary, politics. I feel the better you are at explaining yourself, the easier it is to take in what you're getting. And so in doing that and tying everything in, I'm realizing that I'm part of a bigger thing. It isn't just being an artist. It isn't just being a DJ. I'm part of a movement.
Do you think being an artist gives you a different point of view of what DJ culture and DJ art form is, right? Because we have a lot of people that are calling themselves DJs now. But you come from a time where it was an actual art. DJing was and still continues to be an art form. When you take away, I have a playlist or I'm playing at a bar, and you go to the actual root of DJing and listening to the masters that we had, whether it's Levan, whether it's Mancuso, whether are the DJs at the radio station, it was an art form to the way they were mixing.
Yeah, and that's something else, because it's innate in me to be an artist.
Right.
Because growing up, even though I didn't know I was part of a larger culture, I'm having elders speak to me about different things.
Yep.
So listening to radio and I would say taste or knowledge of music was basically due to a man, Frankie Crocker, being one of them.
Yep.
And Frankie Crocker, the way he did radio programming, you heard different genres of music on the radio. And so growing up in a culture where it wasn't just R&B,
Right.
it wasn't just disco,
Right.
and I found over the years finding myself trying to fit into a box, because at the end of the day, this culture that we're sharing is actually a business. And business is always trying to find a way to sell a product,
Right.
which we are the product in essence.
Sure.
And it's kind of sad that sometimes the lines are blurred.
Yep.
And so not to look, and I'm also coming from a vantage point of, I feel like the last couple of years I'm in a sense new to this again.
Yep. Makes sense.
Because I feel as though I'm starting from scratch. I tell people I'm in the trenches, trying to claw my way up, and even though I might be standing in line at the Blue Note and know certain people, it's more to it than that. And that again, you realize you're part of a culture because you're connected to people who are doing big things, and just because you're not flying overseas or DJing in the major clubs in the main room doesn't mean you're not contributing to the culture. So I know other DJs who will go down a list of DJs who you never heard of before. And all of those DJs are pieces of a puzzle, and that's why I push DJ culture as opposed. I'm a house head. I love house music, but there's more to it than that, and it's very nuanced. You know, so everybody has a journey, everybody has a story to tell. And I think now I'm recognizing my place in the story.
That's awesome. Well, you definitely hit a lot of tremendous points that I think we could spend hours talking about, just 2 or 3. But the realization that you have, starting over again and seeing things from a different light, because I think part of coming into something with an empty glass, so to speak, allows you to see things wider, better, and allows you to also do self-examination of what it is that I'm doing, number one, and number two, what are some things that I can change to better myself, whether it's in art, whether it's in music, whether it's the way you're mixing, whether it's how your approach might be to what it is that you're doing, your event, your party, right? Because part of frustrations, I think, for DJs that have been doing what we do for 20, 30 years is almost like, I've hit a peak. And I don't know now how to move forward with that. So they fall into this state of mind where it's like, well, I guess I'm happy with what I've done, so I'm gonna stay, status quo. And some of them even say, I've given up on it. I'm only gonna do things here and there if it makes sense. So to me, it's almost like, wow, if you could look back at the 30 years that you've already put in, and you're able to now say, let me look at this from a different angle that I might have never looked at it before. Like you say, a lot of people think that what they're doing is not contributing in a big way just
Right.
because they're not traveling, just
Right,
because I'm not rocking every Saturday.
Right,
I'm not,
right.
I don't have that brand, that name
Right,
that
right.
people. But you have to realize that every little step that you've taken, right? Because now it becomes a personal thing. What is it that I've accomplished? Not so
Right.
much, let me worry about, getting 5,000 views, or my next party I need to have 300 people. Because if you're going to start looking at things that way, then your purpose is now changing.
Yeah, and I've been through that, having been the person who wanted to be the superstar DJ.
We all go through that. We all go through that.
Initially, one of my motivations for DJing as a kid was there was a DJ in Scotch Plains, New Jersey named Ricky Tate.
Okay.
Ricky Tate had a Pontiac Formula car that was amazing. Sound system on it. He had like the flyest girl in Scotch Plains. And as a kid, we're looking, we want to be like Ricky.
Right.
So that was a motivating factor. But once you get in it, things start to change.
Right.
It's called maturity.
Yes. And you're hitting a great point,
Yeah.
because now you're kind of, at a very focal point by giving these open turntable events where you're seeing so much more than what you did before in all aspects, not just, oh my God, I didn't know that there's 20 DJs or there's 100 DJs, but now you're seeing the people that are coming in, the clientele, and you're kind of viewing both sides to say, how are the people now accepting the diversity of these DJs that I'm having,
Right.
number one? Does it make sense? And can this actually grow bigger than what it is?
And that was the most surprising thing for me, was how many people who weren't DJs, who had a desire to do something, get behind the decks and, look at the turntable and mix and say, it looks like I'm on the flight of space shuttle.
Right.
But you just tell them, listen, I'm going to break it down very simply. Don't worry about all that. And then to hear like a year later, somebody buying turntables and a mixer. That is, I think, in doing this, the best feeling in the world is sharing the culture and opening people's eyes up. I get more joy now than I did in, my 20s when I was like clawing, trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
And now, I wouldn't say it's purely altruistic, but there is this genuine love of sharing the culture with people. And, finding out stories beyond the music, artists, people. Oftentimes I name drop. And these aren't people famous. These are just people I might have heard.
Right.
And listening to them play that song changed my life. There was at one of the open turntables, a guy played a Prince song. And it was the first time I really heard the lyrics, and I started crying.
Oh, wow.
That is the most beautiful thing in the world, and to have somebody, cool with me be there and experience that with me was Thule.
Oh, okay.
And she said, you're right. And I said, I just realized something, and this is beautiful. And for me to have that emotion and to feel free enough to cry.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Talking about that, it takes a powerful song to really make that impact on people. And talking about Thule, she was listening to one of my live events that I did on Twitch. And I think I played a song towards the 1 o'clock in the morning, and she actually said the song made me cry. And you don't hear a lot of that, because in the house music scene, I guess it's more looked at upon as, I have to make you dance, right? You gotta sweat.
Yeah.
So even though the term house music is being used as, it's an emotion, it's a feeling. House is a feeling. I think there's layers also to kind of understand what you mean by house is a feeling.
Right, and it's more layered,
Yeah.
you know, and it's especially on what I've been experiencing. Again, now I'm going to these events and I'm listening with new ears and looking with new eyes, you know. It's sometimes I think at times it's very one-dimensional, especially when you're outside the culture and you're looking in. So in essence, with house music or club music or dance music, whatever you want to call it, the epicenter is the dance floor. You know, a lot of people think it's the DJ booth, but I honestly think it's the dancer's energy that really motivates the DJ to do what he or she does. You know, and a lot of people forget about the dancer. And that only comes from my relationships with dancers. And I remember a dancer telling me that I tell her, if I'm at a party, I'm not really dancing. I don't dance. And so she said, well, you're thinking about it wrong. You know, just feel it. Because something as simple as walking down the street, that's choreography. And I was like, so to look at walking as choreography, it kind of changes things up.
I mean, that's a wonderful thought, and that's a deep analogy, right? To think things that way, because as we go into the newer years, I should say, technology taking over, younger DJs making their assessment of what this culture is, you know, by either watching a video, you know, getting kind of like someone's clip of what they were doing and trying to mimic that, takes away from exactly growing up with that sense and understanding of why a party was thrown, right? And I think that the legacy of a Mancuso, of, you know, even Timmy, even the DJs that we follow at great radio stations like KTU, when we could go back in time and now look at what they were doing from a programming perspective, from a party perspective, it was geared towards something else, a deeper sense, an emotional connection. It was a haven for, you know, various races to come in and have that freedom, but then to connect, right? Emotionally and obviously with the music. And I think that has changed. You hit a great point where people's mentality, especially DJs, newer DJs, and even some DJs that have been around for a long time, their mentality is, I gotta come in and hit everybody hard. It's about me. It's about what I'm playing. It's about how I'm acting behind the decks, rather than what are these 5 individuals on the dance floor doing? And am I smart enough to now touch them and put aside maybe my ego and not worry about how much more am I doing?
And that is a difficult thing to do. It's funny because I'm not DJing every weekend. What ends up happening is there are times when I spend to this day where it's just about me. I'm just happy to get up on the decks and I zone out and it's about me, and that's you're doing the crowd a disservice in a sense. But at the same time, I think it takes a little bit of empathy to get to that point where you understand that. And all right, how am I going to switch up things? So oftentimes at the open turntables, I don't get on. That took a lot of progressing to do, to
step
allow
back.
people, step back and like chill and let people kind of dictate the vibe, you know. It's almost in a sense like DJs complain about requests. So here I am doing a function as a DJ, telling you to come back here and play my music. That it's a little challenging at times, you know. And as a DJ and as an artist, you can't get away from the ego. And I remember I think we had a discussion about that. And one of the things I realized about the ego is what, in a sense, feeds me to have the gumption to get out there and do my thing. So in a sense, you always have to have an ego, but now, all right, how do you tame that ego?
Right.
So it doesn't like filter out into the crowd, you know?
Yeah.
And the audience.
Ego could be a bad thing also, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a destructive thing to have and harbor, especially when you're dealing with so many people. It's a bunch of emotions, and when you look at it, you're kind of in control. And this goes back to what DJing is. You have the power to move that crowd.
And you know what I find nowadays, DJs are kind of afraid of that power.
Absolutely.
Because I always hear about these legendary DJ sets from Larry Levan, and especially early on in the night, what he would do is like play a new record that nobody's heard before, and he might play that thing 5 times, you know, before it's 12 o'clock. And I would imagine, I always imagine, what would today's crowd, how would they take a Larry Levan? You know, because at the same time too, Larry, he was a master programmer, but not in the sense of today's DJ, where the mix is flawless.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
he had his nights.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing, is that people didn't care about that, right? Because you had so much more. You had the space, and you had the sound, and that's what people really don't understand when it comes to sound systems. That is the vehicle that allows you to feel all of these harmonies in a totally different manner. So when you have a fine-tuned audio system, and you could play, you know, jungle sounds, you can play thunderstorm, and that's what he used to do. He used to put sound effects. That's how it came. Because when high fidelity really kicks in, it does something to you emotionally, right? People talk about hertz and certain frequencies. So when you're up at that level, it does. People that you talk about, what was your first experience like walking in? It'll be like, man, that bass hit my gut, and it almost made me throw up. How? And for you to feel that way, now that power is taking over your body and your emotion. You know, so you can't compare that to the current situation that we're listening to. And I'm talking about strictly on that level. So a lot of people go loud, blaring. And it becomes harmful. Right? And so it's already a bad take, because they're not getting that experience that we were fortunate to experience. And we took it for granted, you know?
We did.
We took a lot of it.
I remember the times listening to, well, thinking back, listening to DJs like bring the music down. At certain points, and then, you know, bringing it up at certain points. And I years ago I did a set, and I was talking to Elwood Ellerby about the set. Actually, that isn't his last name, but Elwood. You know who I'm talking about. So I was telling him how this guy was on before me. He had the crowd going, and then when I got on, the crowd kind of dispersed. And I was like so disappointed. And he said, well, did you get them to come back? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, think of clearing the floor as a reset.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're working in a bar. Because what ends up happening, what are they doing? They're going to the bathroom, they're going to the bar to get a drink, they're wiping down their sweat, they're getting that guy's number, getting that girl's number, and then they're coming back, right? So he said, the fact that you brought them back, so what are you disappointed about? So did you walk away from that set redeemed? And I said, yeah. He said, don't look at all those other factors, just look at how you walked away from that set.
And believe it or not, that is part of programming, right? And that is what Larry used to do, believe it or not. Because he knew his crowd so well that he was able to peak, then clear those people, and then get the people that weren't dancing now out by switching it up. So when you think about it that way, that is the recipe that a Mancuso play, because now you're satisfying everybody.
Yeah.
I think part of where we feel stuck is the fact that that train of thought no longer is there from a DJ's perspective.
Well, you know what it is too? It's also how we get the music.
Well,
because back in the day, we used to go to the club.
Yeah.
You hear these tracks that most of them you couldn't even get because they were white labels or reels. And then you go to places like Vinyl Mania.
Yeah, of course.
And you would hang out there all day.
Yeah.
Looking at what other DJs play. You get to talking to people. So there's a sense of community from that standpoint. And that's the merchandising aspect, right?
Absolutely.
And so then you go home with your few cuts and you play.
Yeah.
You practice. Nowadays you sit on a laptop, you look at a DJ's top 100 list or top 10 list, and you just scroll through your favorite DJs and you pick out stuff. And so now if you have a festival where you have, say, let's be generous, 4 DJs, right? And those 4 DJs are getting their music from the same place. You're gonna have the same sound. Nobody wants to experiment. And the way I shop, the same way I shopped when I was shopping for records. So if a store specialized in hip hop, I would go through there and look for the white labels that may have been house.
Yeah, of course.
And I would find gems. And one of my favorite tracks, it's a classic, well, for me, Rainbows of Color. The Groove Rider mix by Masters at Work, right? Or the Masters at Work remix of that. I still play that today, and people are like, yo, where'd you get that? I got it at that record store on Route 18 back in the day, across the street from the mall.
Oh,
Route
wow.
18
Yeah.
I got it there for $2.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? It's import for $2. Would never have known, I just saw Masters at Work. Let me grab it, and knew about Groove Rider because I'm into drum and bass. So I knew I had a gem, it worked out perfect.
That's awesome. But yes, I can definitely see your point. But I think in addition to that, you also have producers that are producing the same sound. So that is a different, topic on its own. But we've had a few producers kind of voice their statement to ask others to please, get off that 4 to the floor, to expand your mind. And I think that also comes from where we are, right? So to me, it's like, hey, if so-and-so is producing this sound and they're getting hits and they're going to travel, I need to follow that. Because they're afraid to now get stuck back by being different, by producing different, and only maybe selling 2-3 copies, and kind of giving up what they actually feel and wanting to produce that. And I've come across a lot of seasoned producers also that have reached that limit, that are kind of like frustrated in that sense.
You could fall into that trap because for years I've always messed around with Reason. And I just got Logic. And, Ray Seiler's helping me, set things up. And so from that standpoint, now that I'm going into the producing end, again, I'm looking at it from a different standpoint. All right, what's going to make me stand out? So it's almost like I have the history. So I could look at the history and kind of figure out my formula. Not so much the formula, but my formula. And I know I'm not a musician. So it's going to be very simple. And I'm the build on it. And it's very easy nowadays to mimic. They have these, you can buy these packs with these sounds. And just, all right, I want it to sound like Moody Man.
Exactly.
So Moody Man is selling this pack, so you buy Moody Man's pack, and now you sound like Moody Man, and vice versa with Masters at Work. So that's what's happening. I think it was Mos Def said, if you like art enough, you'll eventually want to create your own art. And that's with everything. That's why MCs start to sound alike. They hear an MC, they're practicing and writing every day, and next thing you know, they're creating something. But it sounds like whoever the MC they love is. So it's going to be interesting what I produce because I like a little bit of everything. Also me walking in, understanding I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
So there's only going to be certain limits to what I can do as a producer. So bring in musicians that know what they're doing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And experiment. I think people are afraid to experiment at the end of the day.
Now, why do you think that is the case? And I'm only asking this because you are kind of like in the perfect spot by doing this open turntables, where you're seeing a flux of DJs. You're seeing a genuine interest on, like you said, maybe they don't know what the DJ culture is, but they're fascinated, like we were at the beginning.
Right.
Oh wow, you put the needle here and wow, the sound comes up, and then you so aside from having a flux of DJs, now you're seeing people coming out, right, to your event. Do you feel that they're coming out just for the beer and there's nothing to do on a Sunday? Or do you feel they're actually coming in with a state of mind of, I want to hear someone that can musically educate?
I think it's a combination of both. In a way, it's something different. Now you're starting to see more open turntable events pop up, but it's nothing new. I found out about open turntables from some cats overseas.
Yeah, they were doing it years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so my whole thing was, all right, it's kind of like an open mic, but using turntables. And Mark Henderson, he's a playwright. Actually, I'm going to his play today.
Okay.
He's the one that suggested that I do something called Born Again Vinyl.
Yeah,
because my wife's brand was Born Again Vintage. We're no longer together, and so I had to go a separate way. So that's why I switched it from Born Again Vinyl to Gathering the Tribes. But the whole idea was, this is a way of bringing people together.
Right.
And I was just inviting people to come, or DJs to come to the store and play.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, I met him walking by the store thinking it was a record store. His name is True. And he does these reels, and he's relentless with it. He has this love of hip hop. He has a knowledge of R&B. Plus, going back to the dancer, he's a dancer.
Yeah.
So he's now DJing. After COVID, he took part of his money and invested in a controller.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And he started spending, but he would come to the store religiously on the weekends playing the vinyl.
Yeah.
And again, I got so much joy out of seeing him grow with that, and he was fulfilling something that he wanted to do. He said, I DJ back in the day, I just got out of it, and to see somebody go from just coming over playing around to now getting DJ gigs and be relentless with his social media and doing his thing on social media, I'm like, sky's the limit. I don't know what his desire is, but he has a pure love of the music, and that's a beautiful thing. And so he's one of those people.
Yeah.
So some people go that route. Some people will just, I want to start buying records, buying vinyl.
Right.
They didn't know where to buy it. So now I'm letting them know where to buy the vinyl.
So what is your purpose? And do you think that your purpose has changed from where you started to where you are now? Because, let's be real, right? Let's have a real open conversation about that. You mentioned before, there's also a thin line where it becomes a business. So what is the business from your end? What is it that you're looking to gain out of this, to keep doing it?
It's funny, at first the DJing was a vehicle to get people to look at my art.
Okay.
And it's still a vehicle for people to look at my art, because if I walk into a spot and say, hey, I'm a DJ.
Yeah, I got you.
You
got a different angle.
Let me in. You know what I mean?
Got it.
And again, it goes back to my willingness to not be on stage.
Okay.
My willingness to be in the background. So if I'm in the background painting, which it started with Giant Step.
Yeah.
And my relationship with the artist Jerry Gann.
Okay.
So we had a mutual friend who was doing these Giant Step sessions. This was like 1999, around there. And they would pay us to basically paint in front of an audience. And I'm like, wow, I could do this. So that's when my wheels are turning and trying to explain to my dad, listen, I could do the art and DJing. Look what it's doing. So I'm cool with the fact that I might never get on that stage to DJ, but if I come in as an artist, so the business still kind of falls on like letting people know I'm an artist. But then all of a sudden I invested a little bit more money into my equipment. Now I'm doing parties. And yeah, it's a business, but now I only want to do the parties I want to do.
Okay. Choice.
Yeah.
It becomes choice.
Yeah. So if you come to an open turntable and you hear what I spend and that's the style of music you like, I'll do that. So, but going back over 25 years ago, I was painting, or not painting, but DJing in clothing stores.
Right.
So it isn't just about the club.
Right.
You know, the first time I went to the Winter Music Conference, they had DJs in Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At shoe stores and things like that. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And here I am DJing in a clothing store.
Yeah.
So there are other avenues. So you don't necessarily have to be in a club.
Right.
And so I'm starting to see it as a business, but as I learn more about how business is shaped, I'm becoming like anti-capitalist at the same time, but also being a capitalist. It's hard to be
right. It's being human, right? There's that desire of like, okay, how am I going to make money out of this?
Right.
What do I need to do to take it to the next level, right? Because I can't just spend all of this money on equipment and records and be satisfied with playing in my bedroom, right?
Right. And with that being said, it's again, I might DJ a spot and they don't have a budget, right? And they give me whatever they give me, and I said, well, listen, can I sell my t-shirts?
Right. Okay.
So that's a way of turning things around. And so the whole merchandising aspect, again, being in the culture and looking around. So like when Naughty by Nature came out, and they were like one of the first to have, you know, a website with all their brands, you know, and they're selling underwear, sheets, and then they had the store downtown Newark. And that was just a way of them connecting to the community, right? Then you would have diehards come in there because, you know, they want to see Vinny or Tretch in there. But at the same time, it's a way of marketing their brand. You know, you fast forward or at the same time, Nervous Records. At one point, they stopped making music, but they're selling this merchandise. And then we're making more money on the merchandise than they were on the music. So, and one of my friends, Justin Imperiale, he was having issues with people giving him a fair shot as far as a reasonable rate with DJing. He said, well, let me sell my products. He was making CDs, he was making albums, you know, let me sell my merchandise here, let me sell the t-shirts. And he did his thing. So there's always an alternative. You know, you don't just have to make money. And like those who I bring into the tribe, and it's very loose. It's I think of it like the house version of the Wu-Tang. You know, it's like I want to bring people in, and you know how they say Wu-Tang forever. I want Gathering the Tribes to be forever. You know, so if you come in and you don't say have an artistic eye, you're not an artist. All right, let me hook you up with the logo. Take that logo, my boy DJ Rich. I did a logo for him. He did t-shirts. He's selling the t-shirts. So he took it upon himself to do that. I told him about DJing in galleries. He's DJing in galleries, getting gigs in galleries. And so it's about also me sharing what people didn't share with me. You know, and so it's fun. Again, you know, seeing growth within myself, and then also seeing the growth with the people around you,
of course,
and showing them the possibilities.
Great stuff that you're sharing with me. Question for you though, if someone was to offer you and say, I need you to give up DJing, here's money for a gallery, I want you to be a full-time artist, or to turn around and say, hey, I'm going to invest in you DJing, forget the art, which one would you choose?
Probably the art. Because what happens is DJing is an expression of my creativity
As an artist.
as an artist. So again, I don't separate the two.
Got it.
And it would be up to me to express to them,
Yeah.
listen, it isn't one or the other. If I choose the art, I'm bringing DJ culture into it.
Okay.
So I might not be shining as the quote unquote DJ, but I'm the artist and I'm curating, bringing my friends in. And you know, if I want to get on, I can get on. You know what I mean? So it's all the same.
Right.
You know, and again, it's now I'm finding out that I could do both and have artistic integrity.
Right.
And they always say do something that you would do for free.
Right.
And with both art and DJing, I would do it even if I wasn't, you know.
Got it. Wow.
And the misconception too is you have to just do your thing, like as an artist.
Of course. Right.
But I work for a pharmaceutical company.
Yep.
It allows me the freedom to not worry about a paycheck
Of course.
on my art
Yeah.
and my DJing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I choose what I want to do.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the freedom. I still don't truly know what freedom is.
Okay.
And that's what I'm striving for.
Okay.
And it's artistic freedom for me.
Yeah. I think that once you have realized, whether it's in just the music that you're playing, I think there has to be a sense of pure happiness of you playing that now brings forth that sense of freedom, because you're gonna carry that, right? And it was something that I also had to go back and re-examine, sort of, where am I musically? What's turning me on? What's bringing me that happiness, right? Because to be DJing in the 80s, 90s, yes, the music that was coming out, freestyle, hard house, you know, you had a lot of the reggae, right? This is what a lot of the DJs were doing. They were playing multi-musical stuff.
Yeah.
Louis Vega started that way. Freestyle, reggae, that was just the format. Mm-hmm. And as producers came and music changed, right? And then you went out, you heard somebody, you're like, oh my God, what is that? Like, I remember the first time I heard Los Conquistadores Chocolate, right? I was working with Bobby Condors in BLS, and him, myself, and a friend of mine, he's like, what are you guys doing after the show? And we're like, you know, we're not doing anything. He was like, I want to take you to a party. Fine. We drove up, I don't know where it was in Manhattan, but we drove to a high school.
Okay.
We went through the back and we went downstairs. Mm-hmm. It was called the Friends Party. And I'm telling you, at that time, I must have been probably in my mid-20s. These guys were already in their 50s with the parachute pants, Chinese slippers, baby powder everywhere. It wasn't packed. It was probably about 30, 40 people. But the music that were playing, and this guy played Los Conquistadores, and every dancer just went loose. And I looked at Bobby and I was like, what is this song? And I'm talking about probably mid-80s when I went. So he was like, you know, you never heard of this? I was like, I've never, because my mind doing parties here was house, you know. It was more, you know, Bobby Condors, the poem, everything on Strictly, you know, that's what people came out and listened to me. Right. But there was always a hunger. Working at the record store, I used to get a lot of imports, a lot of down-tempo stuff, and nobody was playing that stuff until this day.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I was doing stuff with Tammy or Eric, Underground Dreams and all these parties, I would ask them to let me have my own little room, to let me have my own little section, because I wanted to really highlight this stuff. Mm-hmm. And the people that would walk in, they would stop, they would listen, and they would spend half an hour, 40 minutes and be like, what is this stuff that you're playing? And I would be like, these are all down-tempo imports. You know, so I always had that hunger, and I never really, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I believed enough to know that the music is that good that it's gonna impact somebody. It's gonna make them say, whoa, well, you know, I didn't hear this, what is this? And as I learned more, then I learned about, jazz fusion, jazz funk, jazz dance terms that I've never heard here in the States, in the limelight. Right. I've never heard of a jazz dance fusion event here, but it's every event in the UK, in Japan. And what are they playing? Donald Byrd, George Duke. They're playing, Tanya Maria in a club with the sound system.
And see, the first time my hearing that style jazz in a club or dance setting was your party, and that first party was the one I took my daughter to.
Oh, and that's right. And you left a little early.
She was like, "This is too much," but that opened my mind. And then when I was doing the open turntables, and listen, if people take this the wrong way,
we have an open conversation here.
We have an open conversation. So at one point with Four City, because of it being, it's a residential building, we were going till 10, because I used to have a Thursday night, and that thump, they were like, "Listen, no more house. It's too much," And at first I got pissed off. I was like, "Oh, it's about this, it's about that." And I said, "You know something? I'm gonna think outside the box." Yeah. And what ended up happening was I started filling my crates with music that wasn't house, but was aesthetically dance music. Yeah. And then I'm like, whoa, I have a whole bunch of music that I've never played before.
Yes.
So I'm going through my collection and I'm like, damn, and the first couple ones, I would bring like 5 crates of records. Right. Knowing, but that's how I used to do back in the day. I would bring like 4 crates of records. I know I'm only spending for 3 hours. Right. But I like the choice. Right. And it caused me to think outside the box, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of music here that isn't getting played. Absolutely. And then social media also plays a little bit into this. You fast forward to Terry Hunter getting the nomination for his remix with Beyonce, and so now I'm noticing Terry Hunter's post, and he's talking about how come nobody plays down tempo. And so, and he's also calling himself out. And people didn't see that, but he's calling himself out on that and challenging DJs to think outside the box. So I'm like, all right, let me go through my, files, my records, and see what I have. And I have a lot of stuff, and forget about the digital stuff. And I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of music here that nobody touches on. And I did a mix, and people were like, yo, this sounds really different. And I'm like, all right, this is part of the arsenal. And it's part of you opening up your mind to just say, you know what, I like the response. I'm going to implement it more. I'm going to add it more. It's people dig what you're doing, and it's like, all right, you might not have everybody jumping on board. It's a slow burn. And I think nowadays social media plays into this. Everybody wants instant gratification.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want a room full of like 500 people fist pumping, and I'm not the Martinez brothers. You know what I mean? And everybody has, and not to knock them, but that isn't my thing. Absolutely. And so I'm like, all right, how can I be more nuanced? And part of that nuance is knowing other DJs that can do those things. Absolutely. So if you have a DJ in your crew who's the main room DJ, don't get pissed off at him. No, he's part of your arsenal. And all right, I'm cool with opening. This guy's better at peak hours. Of course. And it's knowing your place. And a lot of times people don't want to play their position. Of course. And also with the festivals, it becomes a pissing contest as opposed to, all right, how can we take the dancers on the journey? So if the festival starts at 4 and you're already at 127 beats per minute, where are you going to go from there? And then again, you got all these DJs, and listen, I'm part of the problem too, because I'm buying from the same places, right? Of course. And if you don't know, you don't know. And I think if more people articulated it in a way where it doesn't jab at the egos of these DJs, me included, I think we'll take the criticism better. So people just, oh, he's whack. Why? Because, oh, he was playing some stuff I never heard before. Well, isn't that the point?
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, okay, so that brings me up to a great point, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. How much of it, both DJs and clienteles, do you think are just fake about it? And how, you know, what do you feel that there's truth to making that impact of change, of opening up people's minds, of really sticking to the guns and saying, no, I'm gonna stick with this because I believe that this is what people need to hear. Because there's a lot of talk, and that's one thing that really, you know, I glance at social media.
Right.
Because I think also social media, you know, is dangerous in a way that it allows everybody to voice their opinion without really understanding the content. And sometimes voicing their opinion in that sense comes out the wrong way, right?
Yeah, it definitely does, and I've been there before. You know, me speaking up on politics and things like that. I could say in all the years I've been very vocal on social media, it's been very rare that anything I've ever said was taken down.
Right. Okay.
And part of it is articulating it in a way that isn't, again, poking at people.
Right.
It's use a broad spectrum, and if you have a problem with the DJ, all right, I understand that. But if I have a problem with the DJ, I'm not going to take it out on social media.
Right.
Hopefully it's a friend and I can discuss with them.
Right.
But sometimes things don't need to be said.
Right.
To be honest with you. You know, and that comes from the vantage point of also of, you know, DJing, you know, promoting parties and so forth. So if I don't like a venue, that's just my personal taste, and I'm not in the trenches with those people doing that. And so sometimes I think people need to keep their mouths shut.
Well, right.
know?
But to the question, going back to, you know, what I mean by that is, you know, you have posts on Facebook asking, who do you want to hear as a DJ in our future events, festivals? And when you look at the response, they're the same DJs that you just said, I'm tired of hearing that they're playing the same stuff.
And it's funny, whenever especially here in Jersey, I always, my dream list is Rich Medina, DJ Spinner, Moody Man, Natasha Diggs, trying to, like a Carl Craig.
Okay.
I just connected with this brother overseas, not overseas, but in Chicago, Jordan Fields.
Yeah, of course.
And I fell upon a couple of his indie labels stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And there's so many DJs out there.
Yes.
And
do you, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you think there's too many DJs currently?
I mean, it's just like, all right, think about this. When the guitar, electric guitar, became a popular instrument.
Right.
How many people were running out buying a guitar? You could go into the Sears catalog. Some of us who are older will remember a Sears catalog, and buy a guitar in the Sears catalog. At a certain point, keyboards became more accessible when you didn't have to program them. You could just buy a keyboard, it's already programmed, and then more people, like electronic music became more popular because of the access to the computer and everything. So all these things are tools, but it still takes an artist to really do something creative, and there are a lot of creative people out there. It's just that, again, it goes back to the business. So the distributors, the people who have the money to throw at people, they throw at certain people, and I should say, you work with people you used to working with. So if you used to working with these 5 DJs, and these 5 DJs are on point every single time they come out, they do their job, I'm gonna work with those 5 DJs, no questions asked, because the formula is made, these are the DJs. I think it takes a little more risk to grab, say, another DJ, and also the arts in general, it's a crab in a barrel mentality. So as a DJ, you make it to a certain point. It isn't one of those things where you see a whole lot of people like pulling people along with them. They pull their boys and everything, but I go out and I meet strangers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, I love the way you sound. I heard this woman, I forget the woman's name, but yesterday, first time playing at the open turntable, and I'm like, oh my God, she's actually really good. And she just started DJing, say, the past 3 years or something like that. And I'm like, that's somebody I want to, you know, work with,
or do something.
Follow,
yeah.
you know,
follow
and nurture that, because I see it going someplace. That's just me though.
Yeah.
We need to embrace what the kids are doing,
Right.
and kind of bring them up. When me and Jerry Gant went to England, and this was around right after 9/11. When things started opening back up. So we went to England. He was into the poetry and art, and he was also an MC. So we linked up with this group called the Mud Family. They were like the equivalent of like the Wu-Tang Clan in a sense.
Okay.
So, but there was a whole bunch of people in their crew, and that night that we went to this open mic, there were some kids that were with them, but they were spitting like they were like older. And their whole thing was, we're bringing these kids up to teach them what we're doing.
Right.
And when they step up on the stage and they're representing the Mud Family, they're not coming out, nothing stupid is coming out of their mouths.
Right.
You know, and I think there's a responsibility for us older DJs to, instead of bitching and moaning about what the kids are doing, bring them into the fold.
Yeah.
And they got something to offer, because they're going to put a different twist on things.
Right. But so do you think that there's a lack of or a missing of a certain hub, or the young kids not knowing where to get this information? Because, you know, you hit a good point. You're hearing all these DJs and you're saying to yourself, wow, she's different, I'm gonna follow her. But the people that are sitting there may not know how to follow her, what she's doing, you know, and they might love what she's bringing to the table in that sense. So I feel that there's that disconnect. Even me, to this day, you know, I have my every Thursday show where I'm promoting the music. I have my brand, you know, I'm doing everything that I possibly can, not to highlight me, but for people to say, if you give yourself half an hour to listen to this, I can guarantee you that you're gonna come out with at least 5 songs that are gonna trip you, and you're gonna say, now I need to find this. And from there, you're gonna grow hungry, and you're gonna say, oh wow, now this artist sounds like this, because that was part of back then, right? I just feel that it's such a selfish situation, almost, that it's almost like, yeah, look, I'm a great DJ, but I don't know how to promote myself. I came to play here. This one person that might like me now has no actual way of following me to connect me. You're in a situation that could possibly provide that, right? You're in a situation where you can be that ambassador to say, you know, I don't know if you thought about this, or I don't know what your overall, you know, ambition is with what you're doing, but you have access to pretty much connect and let people know, which is more important. Hey, this DJ Sharina came last Monday, and here are their details, so you can follow her, because she blew me out of the water.
And that's
there is no central hub that provides that right now. You almost have to do it for yourself.
Yeah,
and that's where people become frustrated.
But actually, it's always been like that in a sense, because coming up in the 80s, there were several key figures that propelled me to want to do the DJing. All of them really didn't have that international, like, this could be a really big thing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at magazines back then and saying, all right, there's a little bit more DJing here in the neighborhood.
Right.
And my introduction to house got me to expand my horizons because you have what was happening locally.
Yeah.
And then this is just me personally. I always wanted to play something a little different.
Of course.
And so I noticed, there's a scene in the UK.
Yeah.
And then you get that UK magazine.
Yeah,
It might be it might be a fashion magazine.
Absolutely.
And in this fashion magazine, they mention this DJ at some fashion show. Then you find out that, and back then you didn't have the internet, you know. And it's definitely possible now. I think people have just gotten a little lazy.
Okay.
And I think we're doing it. It isn't like it isn't happening. But it's just that we're not tapped into those people that are doing it because those people aren't saying, hey, look at me, I'm training people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And for example, too, my daughter is a teacher. The last 3 years, she's been having a rough time, right? And so always on the fence, like, I'm gonna quit. So she'd call me up crying and, I talked her off the ledge. And so one of the things I said to her was, you're not really going to know what you're doing with these kids until like a couple years down the line when some of those alumni come back and say to you, you did this for me. So she had maybe 2 students do that.
Right.
And she said, all right, I might not have been able to get the whole class, but these 2 people came back and said something. I said, each year you're going to get more people. And with DJing and what we do, the same thing is happening on a smaller level, or maybe a bigger level.
So do you think it's about, are you willing to stick it through in what you believe, no matter how many years it takes?
Yeah.
That moment is gonna come where people are gonna say, okay, I'm gonna say, that's hopeful thinking. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Right.
Because I think we're up against something a lot bigger than that. Right. And kind of to make the Cat Williams reference, right? There are key holders. It's a tight community.
Yeah, it's very tight.
So, not to put me on the light, but I know that I've worked and dedicated myself to my brand and the belief of this music, and I spend 5 to 8 hours a day educating myself by listening to other DJs, but understanding artists and the music and searching for that stuff that might be released in other states and not here. And I kind of pride on that. But there are other also DJs like myself that have that passion, that hunger, that ambition, but they're at home, right?
Yeah.
So we do put events.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that are saying, oh my God, you know what? I went to Al's event and I loved it. So now I'm gonna tell 5 of my friends that they need to come and support this. So there's that disconnect where I just believe that people are saying, give me different. Here's different in your face, and they're
then,
oh my God, that's too much. Let me go back to my safe zone.
Right, but at the same time, this happens with think about when hip hop started.
Yeah.
It's basically this underground thing in the Bronx, right? And it eventually filtered out to Manhattan in the galleries downtown, CBGBs, and it grew into what it is today. Now, a lot of that is centered on commerce.
Yeah.
And the fact that hip hop always had this ability to sell a product.
Right.
House music and what we call dance music, this club scene, has several things going up against it. Number one, the so-called house movement is predominantly Latino and gay and black. Okay. So in this day and age, now you have this whole anti-black and anti-Latino movement going.
Okay.
You have that going on as far as a broad thing, right, in the United States. And think about how narrow-minded Americans are.
That I know.
With music.
With music.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So imagine going up against that
Yep.
on a regular, and we've been doing it since the
Yes,
80s.
I totally agree with you on that.
And to backtrack to, I mentioned Terry Hunter. When Beyonce's song, the whole album, and Drake, it blew up.
Yeah.
It seemed like the whole house music community came down on that.
Yeah.
And just wrote it off as, culture vultures, which part of it was. But also, it was an opportunity.
Yeah.
And see, me being an artist, I'm always looking at things from a different vantage point. So going back to the record stores back in the day, when you saw that rack of vinyl up on the wall, as far as the house music, you didn't know who the producers were because a lot of it was producer driven. And they tried to guise it was an artist, but you have no picture of the artist. And so it was an underground thing. It always was an underground thing. So we're bitching and moaning about something that we keep pushing as underground. So it's trying to find that balance. And I think a lot of us aren't good at finding that balance. It's almost like an either-or situation. Either underground or pop. But there's a lot of people that fall in between, have successful careers. And I think, I don't know. It's just...
I guess I'm asking from that sense of with your hip hop example, there was also a support system that supported that, right? Whether it started with Stretch Armstrong and his show that championed more of the underground MCs, but there was a radio station for that. There is absolutely
for house.
For hip hop. Right. Then you had all the stations that supported at the point house and what the garage was doing through Franklin Crocker. Right. So there was exposure in that sense. All of that died, and it went strictly one commercial: hip hop, R&B, and all stations. Or you had your rock station. And I always say this: even the jazz station that we have, WBGO, they take jazz up to a certain level.
There's so much more.
But the jazz dance stuff that I promote is unheard of, meaning there hasn't been that support. Yes, everybody can say, Johnny Hammett is considered jazz fusion. Los Conquistadores Chocolates crossed over, right? You have a lot of songs by Donald Byrd also that you can say have crossed over. But other than that, I don't hear dominoes and stuff like that. I hear a few hip hop guys play more of that stuff, which I find always interesting because some of the house heads don't tap into that funkier sound from these artists that are considered jazz fusion artists. So we don't have that. Now, if you go to Chicago on the rare groove side, everybody has grown up in. You can talk to anybody and they'll probably use songs that I've never heard of that are extremely high. That's part of their culture. So I always believe that as much as we were the Mecca for dance music, and this point goes out to my friend Jesus, yes, we can't take that away. New York and New Jersey was the place that people wanted to party. But musically, we were still stuck on a bubble. Meaning, when people say Larry Levan, The Garage, Let No Man Put Us Under, it's like there's a list of 20 songs that even when they do parties for Paradise Garage, they play that. Larry Levan played so much more that it got lost. Same thing with David Mancuso. So to me, it's like, where is that central hub to now guide people?
I think we're doing it. It's in these pockets, and even like you speaking to me, you're actually doing it. There's an archive on YouTube. We could go to, and you're doing it. So in a sense, it's also about, I think every successful person the one consistent thing is they keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right? They might reshape it, do a remix here and there, but they keep doing it.
Yep.
We just have to keep doing it.
Yep.
And there has to be an understanding that we're all in this together.
Right.
And we're so fragmented. It's crazy.
Exactly.
So if I have a party
Exactly.
and somebody else sends me a flyer for their party that they're doing, I tend to share it even though we might have a party on the same day.
Absolutely.
Because your people are going to go to your thing, my people are going to go to
absolutely.
my thing. So I always say lead by example.
Yeah.
So I don't really look for people to do the same thing that I do.
Right.
And if you do that, you're going to be disheartened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree.
And I just do it because this is me. You have to.
Yep.
It has to be part of you.
Yep.
And I think when DJs come into my circle and they see that there isn't this rivalry, there's always going to be this rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the competition, it steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
But it isn't like if I'm with DJs who spin way better than me, and there's a lot of them, I don't feel threatened by those DJs. I'm going to learn something from those DJs.
Absolutely.
You know, I know cats. I mentioned that guy True.
Yep.
He spins R&B way better than me. He spins hip hop way better than me. Right? Why am I going to feel threatened by him? Because I don't have that desire to spin hip hop and R&B in the same manner that he does. So if he's bringing that to the table, I want him on my crew because that's something I really don't want to do. I'm not going to try to do everything.
Absolutely.
And I think again the ego gets into play, and it's a very egotistical world, DJing. And I think once people see that DJ isn't a threat, it'll get a little easier. It's the same with the art world. You know, if I know an artist that's blowing up, I want to know why.
Right.
I'm looking at them, all right, what are they doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
I'm not going to look at them and hate them.
Right.
They're doing something that's obviously different than what I'm doing. I can't get mad at that. You know, and I think a lot of, in this day and age, success is measured by what's in your pocket, how many likes you have, and when you look at it from that standpoint, it gets disheartening.
Absolutely. And you hit a good point, is that I also had to change the way I thought about these videos at the beginning, right? We all want that glamour. We all want that instant, oh my God, 5,000 views. And, you know, we used to follow a few people, especially in the food. I mean, they release a video and it's like 1 million views, right? But then you understand also there's other things that happen between and behind those, the way they posted the hashtags. That's a completely different world. The outlearning. There is a formula. But at the end of it, I'm like, I want my videos to at least have some kind of reference where it may pique someone's interest, or it might, you know, help them gather whatever information, or give them that push to say, you know what? Yeah, I feel the same way. Let me stick to what I'm doing, or let me learn a little bit more. And even though I may not have the volume that I hope to, I know that at least the content, our conversation, to someone's ear may strike that chord to say, wow, this is exactly the community that I was looking for. These are the topics that were also on my mind that I've been wanting to share. So when you view things that way also, it's already a win-win situation.
And that's how I feel in general. You know, I never thought at 57 years old I'd still be DJing, to be honest with you. You know, and I'm more serious about it now. And also see where the areas of improvement are. You know, so, you know, like promoting, as much as people say, oh, you're doing your thing, oh, there's so much I'm not doing right. You know what I mean? And understanding that I can make those changes. And the thing is consistency. The one thing that I wanted to establish with Gathering of Tribes was do these monthly residencies in a way where, number one, I could keep up with it. I really didn't want to do something weekly, because then you have the pressure of doing that weekly party, and even like the way you do it, in a sense where you pace yourself.
Quarterly.
You know,
but you know, to that point is also that we feel that if we were to do it monthly, there's just, people are not ready. Like, it goes back to that point. It's I think it's too much. So we kind of wind it down a little bit as a sense of reassurance to the people that are going to come out and give them that time to kind of marinate on what it is that the event is going to have. Some people love it right away. And they're like, oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that it's like, okay, I'm still caught between following these guys,
right.
or do I go to your little party, right?
But you could do both, and people don't have that understanding.
Exactly.
It's like everything is so nuanced. It's like, again, like I love different genres of music, and so doing the open turntables, somebody will say, "Oh, you bringing salsa?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, I don't have a lot of salsa," and then also getting requests at parties that I spend. So then I'm hunting for salsa, and I'm like, "Oh shit, you know, I'm not well versed in this," and so it's like a whole. I just picked up the record yesterday. It's an amazing record, and one of the cuts on there is more of a disco sounding thing. And I know if I showed you the record, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know that." And I got it for $7.
Okay, good.
And you know, or going Puerto Rico, not that song, but a song called Puerto Rico.
Okay. There's a lot of versions, a lot of songs in Puerto Rico, unfortunately.
Oh man, I'm trying to remember. But anyway, I found the record and I saw the title, Puerto Rico, go on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this song. But I remember that song distinctly driving through the Bronx. And I remember it was summertime, we were going to an art show, and hearing that song blaring on a box as we're driving past people barbecuing. So all these smells came to mind when I heard that song.
That's the beauty of that,
and that's the beauty of it, and it opened me up. And then also when you play these songs at a party, especially like a family function, you see old people, young people dancing, and it's a beautiful thing. It's almost like at a black barbecue, you play Marvin Gaye, Got to Give It Up. You know,
you knew that was it. That's gonna get everyone going.
And it's the music. You know, it's so powerful. You know, like going back to that Prince song, to cry.
Absolutely.
And I think the only other song that ever did that to me was I went to a memorial for Keith Haring.
Oh wow!
And they played "Ribbon in the Sky."
Stevie Wonder. That's on Stevie.
And to be in that environment, it was at the shelter.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's music is so powerful. And when you venture out and listen to different things, it triggers something, you know, and so I love that. And also, this is a side note, my diversity in music, and this will be for another conversation, is rooted in white supremacy.
Oh wow!
Wow! That's
that's a different, that's a completely different level. But I know we've been chatting a lot. Great stuff, Kortez. But so, just a few random questions. Where do you see the whole open turntable events going? Do you feel that they're gonna stay true to supporting and highlighting new DJs, giving them that opportunity, or do you think it's just becoming the cool thing to do, man?
For me, I'm using it to meet other DJs and to use it as a platform to just bring people together. That's simply it. I don't really have like a long-term goal. It would be nice to do these parties in other cities. You know, that's something I've been working on. And then also, I don't know if you remember Green Man Lounge in Hoboken. They used to do an open turntable, but it was the sort of thing where they had featured DJs.
I got you.
And so, being that I've met a lot of DJs through this open turntable thing, it would be nice to have a night or a day to feature different DJs who play different things and just have a lineup. And so that's something I'm working on.
Now, being that, you know, have you considered taking that a little bit further? For instance, now you know tons of DJs. They know what you have to offer. Why not say, in the summertime, why can't I do an outdoor event and give the people that diversity that everyone's asking?
It's in the works.
Okay.
Yeah. And so several years ago, I started this thing called the African Diaspora Arts Festival.
Okay.
I recently stepped down from that.
Okay.
Creative differences, and I saw myself going into a different direction. But when I first initially started the festival with somebody else, everybody has a motive. My motive was to bring DJs together and use the arts festival as a guise to turn it into a music festival.
Yeah, great.
And so it didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, but knowing the politics of getting those permits, getting the insurance, I learned how to do all of that. And then walking away from this thing, I'm also keeping the name. So I'm planning on doing something down the road, but I'm also trying to pace myself, because a lot of times what happens is we always feel this need to always be doing something. I'm learning to slow down. And so I'm doing that in certain aspects of my life, because I'm always running around doing things. And I used to always feel guilty, whether it was art or DJing. If I wasn't doing something, I felt
you're missing out on something.
And so, and I can't make it to all of the events because I'm doing things and I'm just plain tired. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna shift things a little, but I definitely like the festivals. That is a goal of mine. I would like to be a featured DJ on one of, a couple of these festivals, but bring something different. You know what I mean? Again, I have no problem with DJing in the beginning, you know? And sometimes that's what it takes, or DJing in the back room, and a lot of times we don't want to be in the back room or in the basement. We want to be in the main stage. But again, I feel as though I'm new at this, and I'm trying to earn my stripes, so to speak. So I'm willing to do, not sell myself out, but I'm willing to, do some things, compromise in certain areas, and that's all right,
I think people forget the power that being an opening DJ has. You are going to set the mood, and the person that's going to follow you, it's either going to say, I can't compete with that, right? Meaning you're taking them on a completely different way, because you're stating what that feel is gonna be like. Right. And even if he comes harder than you, you're already standing out on what you did to the people.
And that's another thing. It's like, I think DJs should be into programming. Because if you have like 5 DJs, and those 5 DJs have different skill sets, all right, now it's about placement. And, last night a friend of mine had a birthday party, and you heard of, DJ Rhino?
No, I'm not.
Okay, DJ Rhino CMZ is out of Newark. Okay. He's a hip hop DJ. He did an amazing house set.
Oh, nice.
Because the mood of the room was already in that zone. And he just took it elsewhere. It was still on that vibe, but he, did his thing. And the guy who we're having a birthday party for, DJ Rich, was like, I think I just want him to keep on rocking.
That's good.
And so we all expected him to rock hip hop because he's a mixologist. And it's bad, scratcher. And he didn't go that route.
That's
he played
awesome.
Club, and that was a beautiful thing. And then when the next DJ came on and did hip hop, the crowd went absolutely nuts because we went 3 hours playing house. And then when you switch it up, it was a total break, and it was beautiful. And this guy Mel Ski did his thing.
That's awesome.
And that's a beautiful thing. And when I do more commercial stuff, what I do is I try to play everything but house. To the point where they're coming up, you're gonna play house, you're gonna play house, and then I close out playing house, and everybody's satisfied. Where a lot of times us as house DJs would just get in there, start playing house, and people get sick of the house, and then you don't have a build-up. So I control the narrative by playing everything but house, and then they're asking me, because I'm known as a house DJ, aren't you gonna play house? Oh yeah, I got you. And then close out with the house. I'm happy, they're happy, and everybody got something that they wanted. It's all about programming.
And again, a lot of people don't understand that because they don't think of it that way. It's here's the 10 hottest songs. I have an hour. I need to play them back to back, and I don't really care about setting a mood or bringing that difference on it. So now that you've been in this, I think different aspects, right? Not just the artist, but as a DJ, now you're a host.
Yeah.
You're hearing other DJs play. You have people coming in and kind of opening their minds. What do you think are some of the hurdles or difficulties that we still have to make that crossover and really educate people?
I think one of the biggest problems is most of us don't own the space that we do these parties in. When I had the store, I was able to do whatever the hell I wanted. Again, it wasn't a club, but ownership was there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of parties that start, it's it's lofty, it's nice crowd coming, but if they're not making money at the bar,
you're out.
And I think that's the biggest hurdle.
Got it.
With our movement, we don't own the spaces, so we can't keep that thing going.
Right. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Possibly owning my own space. I really like the store. I have a retail background.
Yeah, I got it.
And so having the store was really fun.
And you can do both.
I can do both, and that's something. But then at the same time, having 2 rents was a little rough. So it's I don't know where things are going to go, but I definitely see myself fusing the art with the music. I have an interest in film.
Nice.
And that I think will tie into things, and just have fun with it and just express myself, and support others doing the same thing.
Any advice for anyone that's either looking to start up a party, get into the DJ culture, or into collecting vinyl, right? That seems to be huge now.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know if it's people are really doing it from the heart or they're doing it again because it's a cool thing to do.
I think it really doesn't matter.
The reason
you can pick up right away, people's intention.
Absolutely.
And I think it just do you, so to speak. And so for me, I tell people where I get my vinyl.
Yep.
I'm not one of those that remember back in the
secret.
day. You cross out the name. I was always the type. I'll tell you who it is.
I encourage that too at all my parties when my live set is. I know you're using Shazam, but hey, ask me the question. I want to tell you the story.
I love that. And it's something that I just love, and
that's awesome.
I have fun with it. So, I would love to quit the day job and just do this, but if it doesn't happen, I'm doing it.
That's good. And you're happy with what you've done.
I'm very happy.
That's the most important thing. Some people are still not, oh my God, not until I.
It's that doesn't. It used to be like that, but then I noticed when DJs get together, especially older DJ, it's one of those things where the conversation is a bitching and moaning session. It gets kind of tired of hearing those things. The music back in the day wasn't like this,
exactly.
And I'm like, younger folks' music is speaking to them.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you understand that and understand also, I remember when calling myself a house DJ was like a bad thing. So
cool.
there's progression. There's progression.
Where can they get your information, find you, reach out to you?
EsotericUrbanism.com is my website, and if you go to Esoteric Urbanism on all social platforms, and Gathering of Tribes.
Gathering of Tribes.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear a little bit more, he also did a podcast with Sound Bodega podcast with Juan Cordovi and Frank, right?
Right. And we're going to relaunch For the Love of House podcast with Mark Henderson.
Oh, nice.
So you could, if you go to For the Love of House on social media or For the Love of House podcast, you'll see some really interesting conversations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cortez. All the best. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Don't forget, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.